22 minutes is not a long time, unless you're 19 years old, alone at 18,000 feet, and every aircraft around you wears the wrong insignia. Second Lieutenant James Howard watches his radio die. His wingmen are gone. The flak has stopped. And somewhere below the cloud deck, half the Luftwaffe is climbing to meet him. March 1944. The sky over Brandenburg belongs to no one and everyone. American bombers carve contrails through frozen air, while Messerschmitts rise like hornets from hidden fields. The air war has become arithmetic. How many bombers cross? How many return? The numbers never balance. The 8th Air Force calls it deep penetration. Tacticians call it necessary. Pilots call it what it is, a calculated massacre. Without long-range escorts, bombers fly into Germany and bleed. The P-47 Thunderbolts can only shepherd them so far before fuel gauges demand a turn for home. After that, the heavies are alone. March 11th begins like every mission, briefing at 0400, frost on the wings, coffee that tastes like aluminum. The target is an aircraft factory near Berlin. The route is direct. The opposition is expected to be severe. James Howard straps into his P-51 Mustang while darkness still owns the airfield. The engine coughs, catches, roars. Manifold pressure climbs. Oil temperature holds. Everything mechanical obeys, everything human hopes. He is assigned to the 356th Fighter Group. His job is simple in theory. Stay with the bombers, keep the fighters off, bring everyone home. But theory evaporates at altitude. At 18,000 feet, physics and violence write their own rules. The formation climbs through cloud. 50 bombers, a dozen escorts. The sky is gray, then blue, then endless. Sunlight glints off aluminum and plexiglass. For a moment it looks almost peaceful. Then the first black puffs of flak bloom ahead, and the war resumes. Howard flies tucked close to the bomber stream. His eyes sweep the horizon in quadrants, left, right, high, low. The scan never stops. A fighter can appear in 3 seconds and kill in 5. Vigilance is survival. 10 minutes past the German border, his radio crackles once and dies. No static, no hiss, just silence. He taps the switch. Nothing. He checks the circuit breakers. All seated. The radio is simply gone. He is flying a steel envelope with no way to speak or hear. And then the contrails appear. High and distant, too many to count. Focke-Wulfs and Messerschmitts climbing in loose formations, positioning for the attack. Howard watches them circle like wolves testing a herd. His wingmen bank left to intercept. He follows. But in the turn, something goes wrong. Altitude, airspeed, a gap in the clouds. When he rolls level again, his flight is gone. The bombers are 2 miles east, and he is alone. If you want more such stories, like and subscribe so these lives aren't forgotten. James Howard was not supposed to be a fighter pilot. He was supposed to be pre-med. St. Louis, middle-class family. A father who sold insurance and a mother who played piano. Howard was good with his hands, patient with problems, and indifferent to glory. His teachers said he had the temperament for surgery. Steady, methodical, calm under pressure. Then Pearl Harbor turned every plan to smoke. He enlisted in January 1942, not out of rage, but out of logic. The world had gone mad. Someone had to help set it right. The Army Air Forces sent him to primary training in California. Open cockpits, steerman biplanes, instructors who yelled and watched. Howard didn't wash out, but he didn't shine either. He was competent, careful. He flew by the book because the book made sense. Advanced training brought the P-40, heavier, faster, meaner. He learned deflection shooting, energy management, how to pull 6 Gs without graying out. He learned that air combat was geometry and motion, and that hesitation killed more pilots than enemy fire. But he also learned something else, That when the engine screams and the world tilts and the altimeter unwinds, some part of the mind goes silent, not afraid, not panicked, just focused. He didn't know if that made him special. He only knew it kept him alive. By the time he shipped to England in late 1943, he had 200 hours in type. Enough to be dangerous, not enough to be confident. The veterans in the squadron looked at him the way surgeons look at first-year residents. Useful, fragile, probably temporary. He flew his first combat mission in January 1944. An escort run to the Ruhr. The flak was heavy, the visibility poor, and the Luftwaffe absent. He came home with his aircraft intact and his ammunition unexpended. No one congratulated him. That was the job. The second mission was different. Messerschmitts came in from the sun. 30-millimeter cannons tore through a B-17's wing, and Howard watched it tumble, shedding pieces, trailing fire. 6 parachutes, maybe 7. He never knew. After that, he stopped counting missions. He flew when the board had his name. He slept when the adrenaline allowed. He wrote letters home that said nothing true. And slowly, quietly, he became what the war needed. Not a hero, just someone who could function when everything burned. The problem with deep raids was time, fuel, distance, the arithmetic of annihilation. The Luftwaffe knew it. They didn't need to destroy every bomber. They just needed to destroy enough. Bleed the formations, kill the stragglers, make the cost unbearable. By early 1944, American losses over Germany were approaching 10% per mission. Unsustainable, unacceptable. The heavy bombers carried the war to German industry, but without fighter cover deep into the Reich, the entire strategy risked collapse. The P-51 Mustang changed that calculus. With drop tanks, it could escort bombers all the way to Berlin and back. It was fast, maneuverable, and lethal. On paper, it was the solution. But paper doesn't account for radios that fail, clouds that separate, and the chaos that turns formations into isolated specks of aluminum over hostile territory. March 11th, 1944. Howard's problem is immediate and ancient. He is alone. The bombers he is supposed to protect are under attack. His radio is dead, and a swarm of German fighters is climbing toward him. Standard doctrine is clear. If separated, rejoin the formation. If unable to rejoin, return to base. Do not engage superior numbers. Do not deviate. Survival is the mission. Howard looks east. The bombers are there, small and dark against the clouds. He counts the contrails above them. 30 fighters, maybe more. The bombers are already taking fire. He can see the flashes, the black smudges of exploding cannon shells. He checks his fuel. Enough for 20 minutes of combat. Maybe 30 if he's careful. His ammunition counters read full. 650 caliber machine guns, 1,800 rounds. The math is simple. He can help, or he can leave. No one would blame him. No one would even know. The radio is dead. There are no witnesses at 18,000 feet. He could turn west, dive for speed, and be over friendly territory in 15 minutes. Safe, blameless, forgotten. He does not turn west. He sees the first kill before he reaches the bombers. A B-17 on the edge of the formation shudders, noses over, and begins the long fall. No fire, no explosion, just structural failure and gravity. He doesn't watch it go. He's already scanning for the fighter that did it. There, high and left, a Focke-Wulf 190, blue-gray camouflage, rolling onto another bomber. Howard pushes the throttle to the stop and pulls the nose up. The Mustang climbs. The distance closes. He lines up the shot. 50 yards, 40. The reticle settles just ahead of the Focke-Wulf's cowling. He presses the trigger. The guns hammer. Tracers arc out. The Focke-Wulf's canopy shatters. Pieces of metal spin away. The fighter snaps left, trailing smoke, and dives. Howard doesn't follow. There are too many others. Another passes in front of him, head-on, cannon flashing. He banks hard right, feels the shudder of shells passing close, and comes around onto its tail. 2-second burst. Hits on the wing root. The Messerschmitt rolls inverted and pulls down into the clouds. Gone. He climbs again. His airspeed bleeds off. His head swivels. 2 more fighters diving on a crippled bomber. He turns into them, fires from long range, forces them to break off. They scatter. He picks one and chases it through a wide spiral, fires again, sees strikes on the fuselage. The Messerschmitt levels off and runs east. He lets it go. When he looks back, the bomber formation is still there. Ragged, smoking, but there. And the German fighters are repositioning. They've noticed him now. 1 Mustang, alone. They begin to turn in his direction. Howard counts 6, then 8, then loses count. They're coming from multiple directions, setting up a trap, high cover and low attack. A standard tactic, coordinated, professional, lethal. He has 2 choices, run or fight. Running makes sense. Fighting is suicide. He noses down, picks up speed, and flies straight into the middle of them. The next 20 minutes become a single continuous motion. There is no thought, no fear, no time, only reaction, physics, instinct, the body and the machine moving as one. A Messerschmitt passes overhead. He pulls up, fires, misses, rolls inverted and pulls through. Another fighter crosses in front. He leads it, fires, sees smoke. It breaks away. He reverses, scans, finds another. The sky is full of tracer fire, green from the Germans, white from his own guns. The bombers above continue their straight and level run, bomb bay doors open, flak bursting around them. They cannot maneuver. They cannot defend themselves. They can only hold course and hope. Howard makes himself the problem. Every fighter that turns toward the bombers finds him in the way, firing, chasing, forcing the break. He doesn't need to kill them all. He only needs to disrupt them. By seconds. Seconds become minutes. Minutes become survival. He catches a Focke-Wulf 190 climbing toward a straggling B-17. The German pilot doesn't see him. Howard closes to 100 yards and fires. The burst is perfect. Strikes walk up the fuselage and into the cockpit. The fighter shudders, pitches forward, and goes down trailing fire. No parachute. Immediately, 2 more bounce him from above. Cannon shells rip past his wing. He brakes hard left, pulls 6 Gs, feels the gray edge of his vision closing in. The world narrows to a tunnel. He eases the stick, lets the blood return, and reverses. The 2 fighters overshoot. He slots in behind one and fires, hits on the tail. The elevator tears away. The Messerschmitt tumbles, spinning flat, out of control. Fuel gauge. He glances down. A quarter tank, maybe less. He's been running full throttle for 15 minutes. The engine temperature is climbing into the red. He doesn't back off. Another fighter, head on. Both of them fire at the same time. His windscreen stars. A hole punches through the canopy just behind his head. Cold air screams in. He keeps firing. The Messerschmitt breaks left and dives. He doesn't know if he hit it. There's no time to check. He looks for the bombers. They're still there, smaller now, pulling ahead. The German fighters are thinning. Some are low on fuel. Some are damaged. Some are simply gone. The ones that remain keep their distance. They've lost the initiative. 1 man in 1 fighter has made the attack too expensive. Howard doesn't chase. He stays high, between the bombers and the threat, weaving slowly to keep his speed up. His ammunition is nearly gone. His fuel is critical. His hands are numb on the stick. But the bombers are still flying. A flight of P-47s appears from the west. Fresh escorts, the relief force. They waggle their wings as they pass. Howard rocks his wings in return. The Germans see them and turn east. The fight is over. He drops back, throttles down, and lets the engine cool. His altimeter reads 16,000 feet. His fuel gauge reads empty, but the engine still runs. He looks down. Cloud, farmland, a river catching sunlight. Germany, still enemy territory, still a long way home. He turns west and begins the long glide back. The debriefing room smells like coffee and sweat. Howard sits at a metal table, still wearing his flight suit, and tries to explain what happened. The intelligence officer asks the same question 3 different ways. How many fighters did you engage? Howard says he doesn't know. How many did you destroy? He says maybe 3, maybe 6. The officer writes it down. The bomber crews tell a different story. They saw 1 Mustang, alone, attacking continuously for more than 20 minutes, turning back wave after wave of German fighters, defending the entire formation single-handedly. Some crews counted 8 kills, others said 10. One gunner swore it was 12. No one could agree. But everyone agreed on one thing. Without that lone Mustang, they wouldn't have made it home. The group commander listens to the reports. He reads the gun camera footage analysis. He checks Howard's flight log. Then he picks up the phone. Within a week, the recommendation moves up the chain of command. Within a month, it reaches Washington. On June 1, 1944, President Franklin Roosevelt presents the Medal of Honor to Second Lieutenant James Howard. The citation reads, in part, that he single-handedly engaged and dispersed a formation of 30 enemy aircraft, protecting the bomber stream without regard for his own safety and with complete disregard for overwhelming odds. Howard stands at attention. Cameras flash. Reporters write. He says very little. When asked what he was thinking during the fight, he says he wasn't. When asked if he was afraid, he says he didn't have time. When asked what made him attack instead of retreat, he pauses. Then he says, "They needed help. The other pilots in the squadron treat him the same as before. They congratulate him. They buy him a drink. Then they go back to flying. Because the war is still on. And every day, someone else has to decide whether to turn back or press on, whether to follow the book or break it, whether to be reasonable or necessary. The data tells the rest." After fighter escorts began reaching deeper into Germany, bomber losses dropped by more than half. The Luftwaffe could no longer bleed the formations dry. American air superiority over Europe became inevitable, not because of one man, but because enough men, on enough days, made the same choice Howard made: to stay, to fight, to buy time for others. By the end of the war, the 8th Air Force had flown more than 300,000 sorties, lost 10,000 aircraft, killed or captured nearly 100,000 airmen. The numbers are staggering, but buried in those numbers are moments like March 11th. 1 pilot, 1 aircraft, 22 minutes. Small moments. Huge consequences. James Howard came home in 1945. He was 21 years old. He had flown more than 60 combat missions and survived them all. The Medal of Honor sat in a box in his dresser. He never wore it. He never talked about it unless someone asked. He finished college, became a flight instructor, later a test pilot, flew jets in the Korean War, stayed in the Air Force for 30 years, retired as a brigadier general. He lived quietly, raised a family, coached Little League, paid taxes, mowed the lawn. When people found out who he was, they asked the same question. What was it like? He never gave a satisfying answer. "It was a long time ago," he would say. "I was just doing my job." And then he would change the subject. But late in his life, in one interview, he said something more. He said that every man in that war made choices. Some choices were small, some were large, but all of them mattered. He said the mission on March 11th wasn't special because of heroism. It was special because the bombers made it home, because 60 men didn't die that day, because the mission succeeded. He said he wasn't brave, he was just there. And being there, at the right time, for the right reason, was all that history ever asked of anyone. James Howard died in 1995, 51 years after his 22 minutes over Germany. At his funeral, veterans from 3 wars came to pay their respects. There were generals, test pilots, astronauts, and a handful of old men who once flew bombers over Brandenburg, who still remembered the day a lone Mustang appeared above them and refused to leave. They didn't say much. They saluted, they filed past, they went home. But some of them carried a thought they had carried for 50 years. That courage is not always loud, that heroism is often just stubbornness in the right direction, that one person in the right place can change everything. The sky over Germany is quiet now. The contrails fade, the engines are silent. The men who fought there are mostly gone. But the choice they made, to stay when they could have left, to fight when they could have run, remains. It echoes in every cockpit, every mission, every moment when someone has to decide what kind of person they will be when no one is watching. James Howard chose, and for 22 minutes the sky was his.